Hello everybody. Hello, welcome. Oh, thank you. Hello. I thought I would pop on. I've got about 30 minutes here, so I thought I would hop on and say hello. We had some fun oral arguments this morning, and several people had questions, so I thought I would pop on and see if anyone's got questions. So, how's everybody doing today? Just listen to the appeal. That's insane. Yes. Yes, it really was very interesting. I thought it was an interesting way of looking at things for sure. So, I mean, there's always legal arguments for something. So, good to see you all. Oh, Labradorite, you're so funny. Oh, that's so funny. Do you think the appeal will go anywhere? So that's a really great question. The this whole issue of absolute presidential immunity has already really been decided so many times. So I would find it to be very unlikely that, first of all, the DC Circuit would say, forget it. They probably would just go with precedent that we've had for like 200 years since like Aaron Burr. And then for the Supreme Court also to say why do we need to hear this case again when we've ruled on it so many times. So I don't think it's a particularly difficult or controversial case. I think it's just one of those kind of set it up, knock it down, answer the question, get it done situations. So I don't think it'll take too long for a decision to come back. Will there be a point where he's reprimanded for filing? Well, that's a great question. We do have ethical rules you have to watch when we're filing motions. Oh my goodness. When we're filing motions, they have to be based in fact or in law somehow. So if they are finding in the motions that are being filed, there's no basis and that they are frivolous, you can be sanctioned for that. Although most times those sanctions come in when the cases get closer to the end. So it might be a little while before that happens, but it's absolutely possible. Wouldn't have needed a pardon if immunity was a yeah, well, yeah. I mean, there's just time and time again, the justices have said, repeatedly, there's no absolute immunity. Even Justice Thomas. I mean, Justice Thomas out of everyone is saying, no, there's no absolute immunity anywhere in the Constitution. Those are his words. So I'm not sure how they're going to find it. Well, I think 303 Creative had a few other bits to it that made it a bit unusual because of that interesting Colorado law that was set out. But I don't know. Did you hear Trump and his lawyers? So I did listen to arguments. I've not seen a lot of the reporting yet. I've kind of been doing my own thing and wanted to wait and kind of chat with people a little bit before. But yeah, so I heard he was there, I think, wasn't he, during the arguments? Um, Murder. Well, right. Yeah, one of the big questions was which I thought was excellent that the panel had asked. Oh, thank you. One of the questions was, hey, what about selling pardons? We'll just use that as a example. What about selling pardons? And Trump's attorney said, well, I mean, if you are impeached and then convicted, and then charges can possibly be brought against you, but that's a very limited situation. So yeah, it was really the defense counsel was really kind of going both ways. One saying there is absolute immunity. On the other hand, they're saying there are some exceptions, so there is an absolute immunity. So it kind of got tangled up pretty well a few times. He needs to be impeached first. Well, right. I mean, Johnny, that's really the issue, isn't it? And one of the judges I thought made a really excellent point when she said, well, what if they decide to charge him after he's left office and there isn't even a possibility of impeaching him, but it was still for stuff he did when he was in office? So, it's not really logically, it's not really working to go through this like pre-impeachment requirement to a criminal charge. That's a brand new precedent that Trump's attorneys are asking the court to set. And there's not been anything that has said at any point that the courts would be willing to accept that particular argument. So he was impeached, just not removed. Right, right. There wasn't a conviction because you need a 2/3 majority in order to convict in the Senate. But also, the other interesting thing is a lot of the senators were saying, the Senate just doesn't have jurisdiction. So it's not that he did or didn't do it, it's that we don't have jurisdiction to even hear this situation. And so that's why they decided to go with not a conviction. So that's even a different issue. It's a different issue of fact and jurisdiction. Said he was and only showed emotion when his attorney called him. Yeah, well, there definitely seemed a few moments when his attorney was kind of playing towards a particular crowd, but that's pretty normal, I think, in a lot of our oral arguments. I thought the impeachment was double jeopardy. Well, surely that's one of the big arguments, isn't it? And because of that double jeopardy issue, that's kind of the doorway to allow, thank you, to allow for that interlocutory appeal anyway, because of how our case law is written. So if there isn't a double jeopardy question, then the court doesn't necessarily have jurisdiction. But on the other hand, his own attorney acknowledged that the proceedings are different. They're of a different nature. And because they're of a different nature, then, we're not really dealing with the double jeopardy issue that a lot of people are thinking about. Immunity only from civil litigation. So it's complicated. It's complicated. I think there is a lot of different kinds and a lot of different levels of immunity when it comes to a civil litigation. The key with a criminal situation is that there is no kind of carte blanche or blank check to get anyone out of a situation where there has been a criminal offense met. So the questions then start to be, well, did he do something within the scope of his job that was illegal? And if so, he needs to be charged with that illegality. So primarily we do focus on the immunity issue with civil cases, but also, we have had questions of subpoenas and immunity in criminal cases for sitting presidents. But now, if you're not a sitting president, what kind of immunity do you have? And this just hasn't even been an issue. This has already been decided. This is something that has been set out again from hundreds of years, going all the way back to Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. And as sitting presidents at the time being asked things from the court. So, this isn't something that's like, oh, we have to get this completely established. This was established. They're asking for a new standard now that we've not seen before, that there's no real basis in law about. And judges tend to be a bit hesitant about putting new standards into place. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm not sure. Would that be closing the door on double jeopardy? Yes, I think so. I think his own comments stating that there are different proceedings kind of closes that door. But the door wasn't really open to begin with anyway. Again, we're kind of in this weird world where you can just make something up and then come in and argue it, and apparently that's okay. Like, people are doing that, and the courts are having to listen to it and go through the whole process. So it's getting to be a lot, and a new way of kind of using the law as a weapon. And I'm not saying we're weaponizing any kinds of departments of justices, but I am saying that if you're bringing in legal arguments without any basis in fact or law, so we would say they're frivolous, but yet they're still making it into court and they're still being argued and still taking up the court's time. We're kind of in a new era here when that's being allowed as opposed to being sanctioned. Court of Appeals can deny hearing certain appeals. True. Yes, that is true. Yes. Well, I mean, I don't know. I can't get too much into border policies, but our border policies have been a disaster for decades. Like, this isn't, whoa, wow, our border's an issue. Like, no, it's been an issue for a while. It's a huge issue. So, considering the manner in which judges question the attorneys, you could get an idea of the mindset. Perhaps. I think it's a better way to view it if you look at how this court has held previously. This particular set of judges, how they've ruled in the past, The DC Circuit is just very knowledgeable. They're kind of they're at the top of their game. And the way they've held in cases before, even when we're talking about the Blessing Game case and those kinds of questions, I don't see anything that would be really surprising for them to come back and say regarding this. So I think their questions were in line with how they have held in the past regarding these kinds of issues. I didn't see anything new or different. Why are blue states pushing constitutional change? Well, it depends on what kind of constitutional change. Some people want to change the Electoral College. Some people want to add different amendments. Other people want to change things. So, there's always big questions about the Constitution when it comes to that. Nothing to do with politics. Well, I think a lot of us in the legal field feel that way. This isn't about politics. This is about the Constitution. And those two are separate things and how we're taught about it. And so sometimes people who are just diving into constitutional issues now, like for the first times in their lives, like they haven't been doing it for decades, swimming through this madness, I think it may seem a little politically involved. But for those of us that started working on the Constitution and constitutional law questions, 20, 25, 30, 35 years ago, it's ridiculous to say that this is an issue of politics. No resolution today, just arguments. That's right. We'll probably be getting an answer pretty soon. This isn't something that would take a really, really long time. Judges will rule next week. That sounds about right. I would say that sounds accurate to me. What I would guess. Do you consider impeachment a political remedy? I consider impeachment what the drafters of the Constitution could understand and conceptualize at the time would be the best recourse for a leader who needed to be called out. They were calling their leaders out constantly in the beginning, everybody. And that's something I think we forget about. They were really fighting each other all the time. And that was part of getting your blood boiling and getting going. And these debates between all the different sides and political parties, they've always had that. And so for them, it made sense to put a mechanism in to say, hey, if the leader's getting out of control, we need to kind of check him and pull him back. And so that just makes sense. I don't think it's necessarily a political mechanism. I think it was just the mechanism that made the most sense for them at the time when they wrote it. Yeah, but things are different. Things are a lot different. At that time, we had two parties. We had, the Whigs and the Democratic Republicans. That was just one party. And they were pretty split. And you could see that from the writings between Hamilton and Madison. There was a lot of people on both sides. But, that's how it all came about, if you think about it, too. Even with the Revolution was very controversial. A lot of people didn't even want to do the Revolution. They didn't even want to be a part of that until eventually it was pushed to a point where they could no longer just keep doing what they were doing. Status quo wasn't working. And so once that final push came, they're like, okay, fine, let's get going. Let's dump the tea, whatever. But, this is really the basis of this whole country and the fighting that went on. Even if you look at just the arguments between John Adams and Samuel Adams, if you ever go back and look at those arguments, you'll see how those two really epitomized the fight at the time of the Revolution. So because of that, and Samuel Adams played a huge role in kind of sparking that revolution, but then he backed away. He was like, and I'm out now, and I got stuff to do. He's like, I gotta go. But they were arguing and they were constantly battling it out, and they would sit down, have an argument, and then go about their lives and then come back and fight again. And, that's what it was about, is about this constant exchange of political ideas, which is one of the reasons why the First Amendment is so important. So love the history lessons. Oh, thanks. Yeah, it happens to be one of my one of my favorite areas to look into. Fear of staying the same is worse than the fear of change. Oh, that's such a great point, Chris. It really is. I think that's an excellent point. And over the decades, you've seen how, depending on which party is running, one party will say, we are a young country. Oh, we really are, Steffi. We really are very, very young. But one party will say, let's keep it as it is. Everything's great. And the other party will say, let's change everything because everything's awful. And the parties switch. Whoever wants to make that change or not make the change switches, back and forth over the decades. So it's not specific to a party, it's just specific to our ideology in this country, which has always been split. We've always had a split way of looking at things here. And, that was one of the reasons George Washington said he wasn't going to claim a party, was he's like, look, I'm not going to be part of it being split. I know it'll happen when I leave, but until then, I don't want to be a part of it. So we've lost civil discord. It's personal. It is really sad, Suze. I agree. I agree. There have been times where you could sit and you could fight with, argue, have a debate with someone about policy issues. Like I remember, well, I'm sure a lot of you did too, that we would sit in middle school and debate taxes or the big, huge issues that were going on regarding health issues or whatever was going on in the world. We debate with, the opposite party and like, that's ridiculous. That's crazy. And then afterwards, we would go out and go to a movie and, buy each other popcorn. And it was no big deal because we could have differing opinions and still be respectful. And there's this element that's really kind of wormed its way into our dialogue now where it just has turned mean. And this meanness, before you could kind of slice someone, that's fine, but now it's more of a bludgeoning, and it's just in my opinion, I think it's more laziness. In my opinion, it's harder to go forward and make your debates and argue with your words than it is to just say something rude and mean to someone. It's easier to say a personal dig than it is to actually come up with a reason why you're like, that's ridiculous. So there's a lot. And we were kind of trending that way, so I'm not too surprised. So you're cited the wrong Federalist paper. Oh, we love that, VC. I was wondering. I tell you, when they start citing those Federalist papers, it just starts getting me going. I'm like, did you guys actually read those, or are you just quoting a quote? Sometimes I'm not so sure about that. I'm still a proud American. So am I. I'm an extremely proud American. I feel very thankful to be an American. I think I've shared this before that my spouse and I, we were married over the 4th of July weekend, and I had a red, white, and blue wedding, and my family is all military. And so, yeah, even if there was a flag on a cake, we stood in order to be like, respect the flag if it's on a cake, it didn't matter. So, and a lot of that came from support for the military, and that's just continued on. So I think, again, we just have some growing pains. We have bumps in the road. We have things that set us back quite a bit, but we make it through. We need to survive this and we can get better. Yeah, we'll keep going forward, keep moving forward, and that's what we do. Oh, the recent ones. Oh, no, that was a long time ago. That was a very, very, very long time ago. I got married actually before I went to law school. Red, white, and blue wedding. Yes. My the bridesmaids were all in red. The fellas were all in navy, and I was in white. So we had sparklers, and we had the whole stars and stripes at a wedding. It was the whole wedding, and then of course the fireworks were going off that night anyway. So. Yeah, it was cute, but that's also just, my family's always been very, very patriotic, and I continue to feel that way, but there are moments where you're just like, yikes, what's going on here? What's going on? Thank you for helping us understand. Oh, absolutely. My pleasure. I hope I can at least answer some questions or give you a direction to go in. You had a red, white, and blue wedding too. Oh, I love it. Well, you really need to have a very understanding spouse. My spouse completely understood that he was marrying someone who was a little different. So he was understanding. He humored me, and I'm always thankful for that. So thanks for keeping it simple. Yeah, it doesn't have to be as complicated as I think a lot of people make it. I think, sometimes we get so caught up in our own arguments, we forget that we're not really arguing anybody. We're trying to just share our ideas. And if our communication isn't very good, we're not going to be able to get those across. So it doesn't seem like it's bad. I just don't think it is. I can't sit here and say, wow, everything's hunky-dory, because it's not. It's really not. But, I think there's a lot more positive, and I think, this year is going to be really telling. This is going to be the big year. Thank you, Estelle. This is it. This is the time to really go out and show voting's important to you. So when you answer some questions that should, it does, yeah. Knowledge helps with the fear of the unknown. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And there's so much that we just don't know because we don't need to. We didn't know it before, so who would need to know what an interlocutory appeal is? Who cares, right? But now it's like, wow, this is really important. I should figure out what it means. So I think I think it's good that you go out and seek that information. Save democracy. Well, yeah, I mean, if you want to be able to vote in the future, then yeah, you need to vote now so you can vote then. You're preserving your right on the front end rather than trying to pick it back up again, which is sometimes how I view things. I think we've kind of been gathering and picking up after a mess that we made a few years ago. So, and it just takes time to clean up big messes, is all, for sure. So many folks understand how our system works. Yes, well, and the big words are great, but if you're trying to help someone understand, those big words are not useful. So I think we'll go to work. No, I don't. No. Mm-mm. And that's a valid question. I think if things had turned out different on January 6th, I would have a different answer for you. But I would say we are fighting. I think we are in a kind of conflict right now with each other. But I also see that we're kind of on the down slope of it, that we kind of peaked on January 6th and we're kind of starting to come back together again. But this year will be very telling, everybody. This is it. We've got to break records this year for voting. Again, I'm not telling you who to vote for. You got to just vote for the best candidate, whomever that is, whomever that is. But if we can really, get everybody out to the polls properly, I think that will be the change. Yep, it's all about voting. And I think that showed so clearly in 2016. I think we all learned. I mean, we had just terrible voter turnout. And you can see if you look over the decades on when we've had really bad turnout and who became president after that. And, you can see the trends there. So we've got to kind of bring that trend back to actually going out and saying what you want. So if you don't like what's going on, then go and vote for it, rather than just being upset about it. Whoops, sorry, everybody. I'm trying to move my cat away. There we go. She's out of the way. Oh, my cat's after me all the time. Could you do a video on the Idaho case? Really? I could do that. Let me make a note here real quick. I'll write it down so I don't forget. I have a bit of a list, so I've got to kind of keep my list going for sure. But yeah, I can definitely work on that. What is democracy? Great question, right? Great question. And it depends on who you ask and when you ask, for sure. But ultimately, it's a government of the people, by the people, right? So that's what it is. How it's implemented will depend. DC circuits, right? I think SCOTUS will refuse to hear it. Honestly, Alan, I do. I really do. I wouldn't have said that necessarily a few days ago, but after reading through both the Mazars case and the Vance case, those are the most recent cases involving Mr. Trump and subpoenas. So when New York had tried to subpoena financial records and they were contesting it when Trump was actually president, when I've read through the majority opinions as well as all of the dissents for those two cases, at this point, yeah, I think the Supreme Court will deny cert. I really do. I think that's absolutely a possibility. I feel like they will say, we have already ruled on this repeatedly and we're not going to take it again. So we're not going to take it up. Could you do a video on a constitutional republic versus a democracy? Well, I could, Hawk. You're not asking for much. But yeah, I mean, because they're all in a fruit basket, right? They're all different kinds of fruit. Oh my goodness. But yes, I think so. I think this idea of a republic versus a democracy, I think, is a huge question. So I can put something together just for you though. That's their standard argument. It is. It really is. If the Supreme Court denies cert, then what? Then whatever the decision is of the DC Court of Appeals, that is the decision that stands. So that's the law that will be the precedent that's set in the country. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep, for sure. I know it. It's a lot. Why a car and a truck are both automobiles? Well, sometimes, we don't know. Like, is a lawnmower an automobile? I mean, seriously, is it? I don't know. Would it be categorized as an automobile? Lawnmower? Because if you're on a riding lawnmower and you're intoxicated, can you get charged, right? I mean, seriously, there's some good questions out there. So it can get a little bit complicated. I think that, especially if you're not dealing with it every day, all day, every day, motor vehicle in some states, yes, you can. Yes, you can. Okay. Okay, so, and a lot of people may not have known that. A lot of people may not realize that. Or what about a motorized bike? So, like a bicycle, but with a motor on it. Is it now an automobile? I mean, these are all of those big questions. There's just so many different nuances and shades of gray when we're talking about definitions in the law. So, hearing for Cuddy on Friday. Is this regarding her counsel? I'm wondering about that. I kept waiting to hear if her counsel had been allowed to withdraw from the case. So I will be very interested to see that. Horseback riding because he was on a public street. Hey, that's a great point too, right? On a horseback. I mean, technically it's not an automotive or an automobile, but yeah, I mean, you could do some damage with the horse, right? Same as golf carts. Well, now golf carts, you could do some pretty serious damage. I have to admit, I'm not allowed to drive carts anymore. There was an incident, so I'm not. Oh my gosh, I'm not allowed anymore, but they certainly are fun. Oh my goodness. Electric bike is okay for a person with it. Really? Okay, that's good to know, Suze. Every state's got a little bit different set of rules, though, don't they? I mean, it's interesting. It doesn't have to be motorized to get a DUI in Georgia. Interesting. Okay, interesting. So then even if we go with a bicycle, well, what about a scooter? What about a skateboard? Like at what level, where's the line? Where do we draw the lines on those? Electric wheelchair? Great question. Great question. They can go up to 50 miles an hour. That's fast. That's fast, Suze. If you're on something that can go that fast, I don't know. I've got questions. You should probably not be inebriated if you're operating that particular situation. Damage is minimal. Okay, fair enough. Oh, can't pass it. Use a motorized bike as transportation. Well, I love that. That's fantastic. I have questions too. That's so funny. Did Colorado jump the gun removing Trump before he's convicted? No, I don't think so. Colorado, kind of has their own drummer and they've got their own laws. Colorado is a very interesting creature, much like Louisiana and California. But it was time for them. Their issue was ripe when that issue went in front of their courts there. So I think the timing of it was okay. I don't think there would have been an easier way to do it. I think no matter what, it would be controversial. No matter what, there's no way to kind of get around this without getting a final answer from SCOTUS when it comes to this kind of a question. So, are you pro-Trump? I'm pro-Constitution. I will vote for the Constitution every single time and twice on Sunday if it's allowable by law. I am pro-Constitution is what I am. I respect certain Republican opinions. So do I. I respect all kinds of different opinions. It can be, sorry, cat again, everybody. I apologize. Just one moment. Go on. I apologize for that. My cat's after me. Can we see the cat? No, I just scooted her out of the room. Hold on. Let me see if I can bring her. You want to come back? You want to come in? No? Okay. Maybe next time she's worried now. I put the squirt bottle out, so I know. I put the squirt bottle. Oh, I don't ever use the squirt bottle. I just show it to her. So that's it. I don't even have the heart to do it, but so where was I? What was I talking about? Sorry about that. I'm still getting used to this new kitty cat. We're so glad she's here, but she's like, make up your mind. Do you want me here? Do you want me to go? I know. I know. It's a good, yeah, it's true. It's true. We're moody here. We're moody people for sure. Respecting many different opinions. Thanks, Mads. I appreciate that. Yeah, there's all kinds of different opinions. And, again, whatever label you have on it, I don't think, necessarily matters. I've heard some very interesting ideas from some very interesting people. But should I say or should I go? I know. So it's hard for me to kind of categorize and group a whole group of people together in one party or in another party and say that they're doing one thing or another thing because, people are people. We're all individuals. So did they come back with a decision? Not yet, Sarah. Not yet. I think we'll probably hear something pretty soon. Pretty soon, but just not yet. That's American, exactly. And not that there's anything wrong with any other country. It's just, that's just what we do here. That's how things go. Oh, yeah, you're welcome. Oh, of course, of course. It's hard to believe. Well, I understand, and there seem to be some ideologies that I just blatantly disagree with. And, for different parties, there are things that I disagree with the Republicans on and things I disagree with the Democrats on. And I've had positive things and negative things about all of the presidents for sure. So, there were a lot of questions I had about Bill Clinton, quite frankly, like a lot of questions. But, again, it's for me, it doesn't seem to matter which box is checked. It's what the argument is. Illinois statement Trump. Oh, I read a little bit about that. That this is kind of like a voluntary oath, and I think it's a little bit disheartening that someone's unwilling to sign a statement saying they would uphold the Constitution. I think that's disheartening, in my opinion, for anybody to do that who's running for political office. I mean, they're running to be the leader of the country, so it's like, well, if you don't like the Constitution, why are you running then? Like do something else with your world. Yes, and some people have said that he's kind of in that dictator role. And I think people find out the hard way sometimes that our system here just isn't made for that. We're just not made for that kind of power and authority. And even with the mistakes that we have going on, our system just isn't conducive to having a dictator. It's not. Our system would end. That would be it. We would be done. We'd have to start over again because it would be done. Yeah, well, he's getting to be older too. And I've said this before about many of our Congress people or multiple people who are kind of getting a little bit older. Like, come on, you've got life to live. Go live your life. Would he go after us the first day? Oh, I have no doubt. I have no doubt. Based off of his rhetoric, just based off of his own words, I have no doubt that we would see executive orders flying like nobody's business. It would all get tangled up in litigation, but it would be exhausting, I think, for everybody. He thought he went against it. Well, right. And we all make mistakes, we all say things, especially when you're, talking to a crowd. Oh my gosh, I've made mistakes before too, tons of times where I've said something and I was like, ooh, I don't know if I should have said that. But on the other hand, if you make a mistake, you go back and clean it up, right? So you go back and you say, that was wrong. I said the wrong thing. I made a mistake. I relied on something that wasn't reliable. Let me back up. Let's rework this again. That's not quite right. That's what you do. Rather than just doubling down on it. And you don't just say, okay, yeah, I made a mistake, but I'm just going to keep going with that mistake. Because in my opinion, it's like cutting a hole out of a blanket. The hole just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Like, stop cutting. You're not going to be able to fix the blanket if you keep cutting the hole, in my opinion. So, that's more of my respect or my perspective on it. Difference between good faith and bad faith argument. Yeah. I mean, yeah, And a lot of it too, I think, comes down to honor and your way of growing up and understanding what honor means, and understanding that it doesn't matter what the others think. You have to be able to feel that way about yourself. And if you can't differentiate between the good and the bad in your own self, then, looking at anyone else is just going to add to the problem. So, fact or fiction? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it seems to me, I just thought that's what everybody thought, but I was wrong. and and I'll acknowledge I was wrong. And that's okay. I'm learning. I learn every day. I make mistakes. I do. I'm a person. I'm a human. Oh my gosh. Yes, Biden did sign the oath. All of the candidates have. All of the Republican candidates that I know of have all signed it at this point. I do not know of anyone other than Mr. Trump that didn't sign the Illinois pledge. So, as of right now, and I'm not saying that they all have, I'm just saying I don't have any knowledge of anyone that hasn't other than Mr. Trump. So, and it's distressing to think of someone who again wants to be president but doesn't want to uphold the Constitution in a pledge. It seems like that's the easy one. There's a lot of hard questions out there. There are a lot of hard questions going on in this country, but whether or not to support the Constitution, like that should be an easy question. That should be a really easy one to answer, like a no-brainer. Like it's not going to require, you're not supposed to upset one side or the other by saying you support the Constitution. Like all sides should be okay with that. That's the one thing that we all should be able to stand up and say, yeah, we do support the Constitution. Do we support the Supreme Court? I don't know. They're a little bit wonky, but I support the Constitution. So that's kind of the key. In my mind, that's how I look at it, at least. It's going to be his way or jail. Well, we'll see. We will see. Like he says, he did not take the oath. Yeah. Well, he did take a oath, right? And so you have to say, well, okay, well, let's just look at the oath you took then. Did you keep your oath, or are you an oath breaker for the oath that you did take? Like, have we looked at those words? Did you uphold that? Like, let's just even break it further down the road. The Constitution is the United States. Yeah, I mean, it is it's our compass. We have to have at least a minimal respect for it in order to continue to move, or else we will become paralyzed. So I think that's one of the big issues right now, why everyone's so interested in the Constitution, is because we're realizing how important it is to have just this basic fundamental understanding. You sign that. Any advice on how we can simplify all of this to talk to family members? So that's a great question. And I have to say, I don't have a lot of family members that where we talk about it. It's kind of like a no topic, but it's kind of interesting because before, whenever we would speak to people with different ideologies, we would just say, all right, we'll just agree to disagree. But there's just this like meanness now that's there. And so it's a different issue. So how I have said it, at least what has worked for me, it has been to say, look, we can debate this. We can decide whether or not, this executive order was appropriate, or whether or not the Supreme Court justice was a good choice. We can talk about that. But if you're coming to me and you're saying you're a bad person because you don't agree with me, now we're into a different realm. We're into something else. So that's a personal attack or an ad hominem attack. And those tend to come when there is no strong arguments, or because someone isn't taking the energy to make a good argument, in my opinion. That's like the cheap, easy way out. That's the bargain basement. Don't get me wrong. I love a bargain basement. I love to go and get a deal when I'm out shopping, to get a steal of a deal. I'm all about it. But when I'm having a conversation and I'm having an interpersonal relationship with someone, to me, it's worth the time that it takes to explain it in a way that's not harmful to that other person. It just means I respect them enough to put that kind of energy into it, especially now that everything is so quick. So I would say, look to that other person. Look, let's take our time. Let's peel this apart. Let's look at it. But if it's going to be personal, then there's no reason to talk about it. There's just no reason to. There's no point. There's no purpose to it. I think it can be very difficult. Again, ideologies are, we can all have different ideologies, but when you start to make it personal, it's not about ideologies anymore. It's about compassion and not having enough respect for the other person to make the effort, in my opinion. 57 people involved in. Yes, so we're going to continue, I think, to see a lot more things coming out with that as time goes on. So I will, when it comes to anything regarding the fraudulent electors, or whatever we've decided to call them, the false elector prophets, I don't know. I don't know what we're calling them, but as more information comes out about that, I think it's not going to be surprising to any of us at this point. Yeah, the essay stuff, I mean, there's certain lines that I think we all have, everyone. And when we have someone who has crossed that line and someone supporting that person, it's hard to watch, because then you lose respect for your family member or for your friend when they're saying, I support this person that has so clearly violated a very clear boundary, and they're supporting that. It's painful. It's a hard lesson. Yeah, it's heartbreaking, because you don't want to just say, fine, I give up on you. You don't want to do that. But on the other hand, you have to think to yourself, oh, thank you. You have to think to yourself, this was a hard line for me, and they're crossing it with their support. And I'm not sure that's something that I can be comfortable with in my own world. Must have more patience, more crayons. Well, you do. You have to have, you do at a certain point. Real issues between, oh, absolutely, Snappy. It really does. It really does. I do have one family member who she and I disagree on the Second Amendment, right? We have a fundamental difference of opinion on that, just fundamental. And we can talk about it and we can argue about it, and that's fine, but it never gets personal. It's never a situation where I say, well, because you think that way, you're stupid and you're not educated enough, or you're not smart enough. And so, it's not worth my time even talking to you about it, because you're, just an idiot. Instead, I would say we're just going to have to agree to disagree. We just don't see the same view. We see two different ways. I'm not saying that your way's wrong and mine's right. I'm just saying they're two different ways of looking at it. And it's not worth it to me to lose this relationship over a disagreement of opinions. Meanwhile, though, when the personal attacks come, that's when you have to make that decision and say, is this something I'm okay with? Uncle, we respect each other. Well, exactly, Steffi. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we can have differing opinions, of course, and we should. We absolutely should. But for me, there was always this question too, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And for me, my answer was, I want to be able to respect myself and look at myself in the mirror. So when it comes to any conversation with anyone, do I have to be right? No. Do I have to be happy? No. But I have to feel okay with myself when I walk away. And that's really, for me, that's the key piece to it. Yeah, it's much more personal now, Navy. You're absolutely right. It is much more personal. And I think that really kind of, when it goes down that personal road, it causes harm. And that harm takes a long time to really heal. And, we're all a little bit, traumatized. We're all a little bit triggered now. We've gotten we're hesitant now because of that. So, do this to Trump can happen to future. I'm okay with prosecuting future POTUS. Oh, I am too, Jim. I am a huge fan. I think any president, any congressional person, every person needs to be held, needs to be called out. I don't care who it is. If it's a Supreme Court justice, call them out on it. Is it a diplomat? Call them out on it. I don't care who they are, what party they're a part of. You break the law, you need to get called out. What happens after that, I don't know. But if you break the law, you get called out. So what your job is shouldn't matter, in my opinion. That's how I view it. But I'm also, I've been working in the law for so long too. So I don't see why it would, or how it could possibly be fair that some people get called out and some people don't. It's not appropriate. It's not appropriate. Do you think this administration is corrupt and needs accountability? I think every single administration needs accountability. Every single administration needs to be held out. If they are making mistakes, if they're screwing up, they need to be called out on it, and they need to make amends. They need to figure out a way to make it right. I guess for me, I don't see the idea of making a mistake as the end of the world. I don't see being wrong as it being over. I see being wrong as being a chance to make it better, fix it, just go fix it. But this administration, yes, I think all administrations, everyone, all administrations need to have someone in place, or us or people in place, to call them out and when they're screwing up. And I there was a particular policy that especially that President Obama had on a particular issue that I adamantly disagree with, still disagree with to this day, adamantly disagree. And I wrote a very sternly worded letter about it and was like, this is not how this is supposed to be. But that's what you do, right? That's when you see something wrong, you call somebody out on it. So as long as you accept the mistake and admit it, right, and make it right, and try to at least mitigate the harm. That's my being wrong's not illegal. Exactly. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to be wrong. You just need to kind of clean up the mess. And life is messy. There's a lot of messes. But the fact that you don't even acknowledge that there was a mistake, then that's in a world that doesn't make any sense. Then just don't ever think that they're wrong. Right. And exactly. And it is, Lori, exactly. It is okay to admit it. Exactly. I'm wrong all the time. Of course, we all are. We're humans. Of course we're going to be wrong. If we weren't wrong, that would be weird. That would be really weird. But and this was one of the lessons that I learned very early on with my significant other was no, he's not right all the time. And neither am I. We're both messing up all the time. We're both screwing up. And so if we say, wow, I just really screwed that up. That was really awful. I wish that hadn't happened. And then you clean it up again. Now you can start over. You can try to do better the next time. But the first step is just recognizing, look, oh, thank you. Look, there's a mistake. There's a mistake that was made. You own it, you fix it, you move on. Hard when you can show that. Yes, I agree. Corruption's vastly different. Well, it's definitely got different stakes involved, doesn't it? There's definitely a lot higher stakes when we're dealing with corruption, particularly in the government. So builds credibility. I agree. And I mean, again, perhaps too, I think once you reach a certain point, and I don't know, for anyone else out there who is at the point in their life where you've reached a point where you're like, there's really nothing you can do or say that's going to humiliate me more than I have already humiliated myself. There's nothing, nothing. Like I've already peaked. I've already reached top humiliation. So for me, admitting a mistake or acknowledging, wow, I totally screwed up, that's not embarrassing to me. That's not humiliation. That's just living life. That's part of life anymore because it just doesn't affect me because I've already been humiliated. I mean, when you've had judges scream at you or various other things happen in your life, when you've lived a certain amount of life, and I don't mean time, but I mean life itself, I think you get to a point where you're like, meh, whatever. It's fine. It's no big deal. I made a mistake. Let's clean it up and move on. That's how you grow. It is. Close the case. Nope, still ongoing. We're still waiting. We should have the Florida case, we should have a joint discovery report today, but that's the least part. The most that I know, I don't know about Georgia at this point. Yeah, I mean, especially if you've been through, well, I don't want any sympathy, but for people who have been through law school or have been in front of a judge and you get completely humiliated repeatedly, there comes a point where you're like, meh, whatever. You just move forward. You're like, I'll survive it. I might be limping, but you'll survive it. And so you keep you keep moving forward. Oh my goodness. Part of the training. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah, and I think one of the things, I had a friend who did a lot of training for boxing, and he was always working on his technique on, offensive and defensive. And I'm not a boxer, so I can't get into all of the terms, but so he's breaking down all of this, blah, 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 sports, blah, blah. And, for me, he was getting ready for a fight. And the question wasn't, well, can you, throw a punch? The question was, can you take a punch? And, that's just kind of like the motto. Like once you've taken a few punches and you understand that you still stand back up and you walk away and you try again, then it's okay. You're not so worried about it anymore. So yeah, you got to keep walking. Exactly. Yeah, it does. Even if it doesn't make you stronger, because sometimes it doesn't. It feels like it doesn't make you stronger. But if it doesn't make you stronger, either way, you survive it. And that's a win. You get full credit just for surviving. Automatic points. Automatic points just for living through it. 100%. Absolutely. So I think it makes it easier then to acknowledge when you make a mistake. When you screw up, then it's okay to say, yeah, I screwed up. So what? Everybody screws up. Trial by fire. Yeah. And after a while, it doesn't matter anymore. You're like, I've already been set on fire. This is nothing. I've been set on fire 100 times. Bring it on. Oh my gosh. Very interesting points. I think so. Do we have a verdict? No, we don't have any kind of verdicts yet at this point. But for any of our cases, we haven't even picked a jury for anything. Not one of us is perfect. Well, exactly. And we're not supposed to be. We can't be. It would be impossible. So, but yeah, I think it's important. Lose faith in if this man cannot be. I know, Lexi, and a lot of people feel that way. Although the one question I would always pose is, what does accountability look like to you? And is that accountability that you would like okay if it's something different? What if the accountability is what the justice system figures out, or what the people when they're voting figure out? What if their level of accountability is different than yours? So that's another good question. Like, what level of accountability are you okay with so that you can feel more comfortable again in your world? Be a fly on the wall of that. Oh, I know, right, Navy? I know, my goodness. You're the best. Oh, you're so sweet. Thanks. Oh, I'm just happy to be here, everybody. I'm happy to hang out and answer any questions. I can't take punches. I'm just a keyboard. Well, right. And if you can't necessarily take a punch, run away from the punch, people. You don't have to just stand there and show that you're tough. You can run away. Run away. That's also fine. I'm a big fan of that as well. Retribution. Well, and some people feel that way. Absolutely. Accountability looks different to everybody. We have different ways of looking at it. What it seems like would be fair for one person is just really not enough for others. Yeah, tuck and roll. Exactly. Well, yeah, just run away, everybody. And I'm not particularly fast runner, but I can run and hide. I'm a good hider. Nice to hear from intelligence. Oh, that's so sweet. Oh my goodness. Yes. It's one day at a time, everybody. We'll get through it. We're all in this together. We're all in it together. It's messy, but we'll make it through. I truly do believe that we will make it through. Absolutely. But I'm a huge proponent of getting the vote out this year. I think that will definitely be one of my primary goals, is to just get people out, registered to vote, know where you need to vote, know what you need to do. We're all trauma bonded right now. Oh my gosh, Mads. Yes, we are. Oh, we are. But voting's the key, everybody. That's the key to everything. That's what this is all about, is the voting. People just have to make it known. And ultimately, when all the votes are counted, we will have decided what we want for this country, and that's how democracy works. So we will see. Conspiracy without evidence. Yeah, I'm a big fan of evidence. I think evidence is important. I'm pro evidence. Oh my gosh. Yes, I'm definitely. Yeah, exactly. You got to know where to vote. You got to know how to register. You got to follow the rules. Even if you don't like the rules, you still follow the rules until, you're on the other side and you can fight against the rules. And then that's what you can do then. But, you just have to make sure that you have a good plan in place. They have to pay for a rehab. That would be good. That would be nice. That would be nice. 4 to 5 million new voters. Yes, we love the new voters. Oh, that's so great. This is it. I mean, this is it, everybody. This is that moment in time. If there's one election that you want to vote in, it's this one, this year, this time. So, absolutely. Right. Have to vote. Have to vote. Absolutely. Very important, everyone. So, after the Trump news, well, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Honestly, I do not wish, and I understand if others disagree, I do not wish any ill will on Mr. Trump. I really don't. That takes too much energy from me. That's too much work to wish anything ill on him. I do acknowledge, though, that man's going to be exhausted when this is all over. It's going to be completely exhausted. Whatever happens, happens, but he's in a fight for his life. Whether that's how it should be or shouldn't be, that I can't decide, but he's in a fight for his life for sure. 18 on Friday. Oh, congrats. I love it. Oh, Laura, we're all exhausted. We are all exhausted. But we rest and then we go get coffee, right? And then we start again tomorrow. We take it from the top again. We'll see what happens. We will absolutely see what happens at this point. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure what's going on with the GOP either. I'm not sure how that's going. I mean, we have a big primary coming up still, right? I mean, we've got the Iowa caucuses next week, and then we've still got all of these primaries coming down as well. So, I don't know. It'll be very interesting historically to watch and see what happens. Why did you come on again so soon? Kristen, I hopped on. I had a lot of people asking questions about this morning, so I thought I would just hop on and answer a few questions. Oh, well, I had a little bit of time. They're falling apart. I have nothing to offer. Well, anytime you start falling apart, it means you need to put all your pieces in a box and start doing some repair work. It's get the glue out, Start putting the pieces back together again. That's what it's about when you fall apart. So parties can do that. People can do that. Anybody can do it. But you have to acknowledge that's what's happened, because that's the only reason why you would start putting it back together again. Because if you don't think there's a problem, you're not going to do anything. So it just keeps going down the same road, on the same one over and over and over again, for sure. Yeah. I mean, you have to say, wow, I've got to figure something out. Off you go, Kristen. Have a good rest of your day. I will be back on tonight. I will be back at my normal time. This is just a little bit of a bonus one. So, sitting in the fire and loving it, perhaps, or perhaps they've become numb to it. And that's sad. I mean, in my opinion, if you become numb to the harm that you're doing to others, that's a different level. That's a different problem that has to be addressed. You have to get to the root of the problem with that. Slow day on Truth Social. Oh my goodness. I tell you. Yikes. Oh my gosh. Have lots of tea if you're coming back later. I will. Actually, I'm looking at my clock now, everybody, and I should probably go ahead and sign off. I was going to do 30 minutes. I was able to give 50. But I do plan to come back on tonight. I'm hoping to have a couple new orders. Yes, Deborah, off you go. Have a great afternoon. But I will be going through some documents as per usual tonight, 7 o'clock at my normal time, Central Time. We'll hit up a document, go through that, and then we'll do a Q&A later. So just wanted to hop on and say hello to everyone and get any of those last questions for anyone who may have missed the arguments this morning. So have a wonderful rest of your afternoon, everybody. And I wish you all the very, very best. And I will talk to you later tonight. So take care, everyone, and go have a cup of tea.